Ambassador Una Park walked through the golden corridors of the Galactic Assembly Hall. Her footsteps echoed against the polished floor. Around her, aliens of every shape and size moved in groups, speaking in languages she could not understand. Some had scales, some had feathers. Some floated in the air without legs. They all had one thing in common. They stared at her with cold eyes. Una kept her face calm. She had learned to do this long ago. Showing weakness here was dangerous. Showing fear was worse. She was the voice of Earth, the representative of 8 billion humans, and she would not let them see her sweat. A tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms walked past her. It leaned toward its companion and whispered something. Una caught one word in the translator. Primitive. She did not react. She had heard worse. The assembly hall was built on Nexus Prime, a massive space station at the center of the galaxy. More than 200 species sent their representatives here. They made laws. They decided who could colonize which planets. They controlled trade and war and peace. And for 47 years, humanity had been a provisional member. This meant they could speak, but their voice meant almost nothing. They were a young species. In the eyes of the galaxy, they were children trying to sit at the adult table. Una entered the main chamber. It was enormous. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform. Lights floated in the air, and holographic displays showed the faces of species who could not attend in person. She found her seat in the far corner, in the section reserved for provisional members. It was the worst seat in the room. High Arbiter Velos stood on the central platform. He was old, even by alien standards. His gray skin hung loose on his thin frame, and his 3 eyes glowed with a light that seemed to judge everyone it touched. He was the leader of the assembly, and his word was law. This emergency session will now begin, Velos announced. His voice filled the chamber. The topic today is the human problem. Una felt her stomach tighten. She had expected trouble, but not like this. Not an entire session dedicated to her people. Ambassador Krell of the Torvac Dominion rose from his seat. He was a large creature, built like a bear with thick armor plates covering his body. His species had conquered dozens of worlds before joining the assembly. They were warriors, and they hated competition. The humans have broken galactic law, Krell declared. His voice was deep and filled with anger. They have colonized worlds in the Outer Rim, worlds that the assembly declared forbidden. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Una stood slowly. May I speak? She asked. Velos waved a hand. You may. Una walked to the edge of her platform. It is true that humanity has established colonies in the Outer Rim, but these worlds were empty. Dead rocks with no life. No one wanted them. We turned them into homes. Krell laughed. It was an ugly sound. You admit your crime so easily. It was not a crime, Una replied. It was survival. For 20 years, humanity has asked the assembly for permission to expand. Every petition was denied. Our population is growing. Our people need space. We took worlds that no one else would touch. The law is the law, Krell said. The Outer Rim is forbidden. You knew this. You chose to break the rules anyway. Una met his eyes. We chose to live. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species nodded at Una's words. Others shouted in agreement with Krell. Velos raised a hand, and silence fell. This matter is not open for debate, the High Arbiter said. The humans have broken the law. The question is not whether they are guilty. The question is what we do about it. Una felt ice spread through her chest. This was not a trial. This was a sentencing. Krell smiled. It was the smile of a predator that had cornered its prey. The Torvac Dominion, along with 17 other species, proposes the following. Humanity will disarm its military fleet. Humanity will abandon all Outer Rim colonies. Humanity will submit to assembly oversight in all matters of expansion and defense. The words hit Una like a punch. Disarm. Abandon. Submit. They wanted to turn humanity into slaves. And if we refuse? She asked. Velos leaned forward. Refusal will be considered an act of war against the galactic community. The assembly will respond accordingly. Una looked around the chamber. She saw no friendly faces. Even the species that had stayed quiet were not looking at her. They were afraid to be associated with humanity. They were afraid of what the assembly might do to them. She understood now. This was not about the Outer Rim colonies. This was about fear. Humanity had grown too fast. They had built too many ships. They had shown too much potential. The older species saw them as a threat, and threats had to be controlled. "I request a recess," Una said. Her voice did not shake. "I must consult with my government." Velos nodded slowly. "You have 12 hours. Use them wisely, Ambassador." Una turned and walked toward the exit. She could feel every eye in the chamber on her back. She did not run. She did not hurry. She walked with her head high, because that was all she had left. As she passed the section where the Solari Collective sat, an ancient creature reached out a thin hand. Elder Moth was the oldest being in the assembly. Some said she had lived for 10,000 years. Her body was frail and covered in silver fur, but her eyes were sharp. "Be careful, young one," Moth whispered. "This was decided before you arrived. The vote is already certain." Una paused. "Then why tell me?" Moth looked at her with something that might have been sadness, or perhaps respect. "Because in all my years, I have never seen a young species walk into a trap with such dignity. Whatever happens next, remember that you did nothing wrong. They fear you because you have the potential to be great. And that is the most dangerous thing a young species can be." Una nodded once and continued walking. The doors of the chamber closed behind her with a sound like thunder. In the corridor, she allowed herself one moment of weakness. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she opened them again and pulled out her communicator. "Admiral Kang Tae," she said. "We need to talk. Humanity has a problem." On the other end of the line, a calm voice answered. "I know. I have been watching. Tell me everything." And so she did, because the storm was coming, and humanity needed to be ready. Admiral Kang Tae sat alone in his office aboard the orbital station above Earth. The room was dark except for the blue glow of the holographic display in front of him. Ambassador Una Park's face floated in the light, tired but steady. "They want us to disarm," she said. "They want us to give up everything we have built." Tae nodded slowly. He was a man of few words. His hair was gray at the temples, and his face carried the lines of someone who had seen too many battles. But his eyes were sharp, and his mind was sharper. "This was always their plan," he said. "We just did not want to believe it." "What do you mean?" Tae leaned back in his chair. "I will show you something. Something we have kept secret for a long time." He pressed a button, and the display changed. Now it showed documents, intercepted messages, and recordings that spanned decades. Una's eyes widened as she read them. "These are communications between the Torvak and the Korath," she said. "They have been planning this for 20 years. Longer," Tae replied. "They started watching us the moment we left our solar system. We were too aggressive, they said. Too ambitious. Too dangerous. They decided early on that humanity would never be allowed to grow beyond a certain point." Una felt anger rise in her chest. "And the assembly? Did they know?" "Some did. Some looked the other way. It does not matter now. What matters is what we do next." The door to Tae's office opened, and 3 figures entered. General Seok Woo was a large man, with a scar running down the left side of his face. He had fought in the colony wars 15 years ago, when human factions had battled each other for territory. Now those factions were united, and Woo was one of the reasons why. Behind him came Dr. Hana Shin, a small woman with glasses and kind eyes. She was Earth's leading expert on alien cultures. She had spent her life studying them, learning their histories, understanding their fears. The last to enter was Captain Minho Lee. He was young, barely 30, but he commanded the flagship of Earth's fleet, the Horizon's Edge. His crew would follow him anywhere. "You all know why we are here," Tae said. "The Assembly has given us 12 hours to respond. After that, they will vote to sanction us. If we refuse, they will send a fleet." Wu crossed his arms. "Let them send it. That is not a decision we make lightly," Tae replied. "If we fight, many will die. Humans and aliens alike." Dr. Shin stepped forward. "May I share something, Admiral?" Tae nodded. Shin activated her own display. Images appeared showing different alien species, their histories, their fates. The Villani were a young species, like us. They showed promise. They built ships, explored the stars, and dreamed of joining the galactic community. The Korath destroyed them 300 years ago. The Assembly did nothing. She changed the image. The Morn were peaceful traders. They had no military to speak of. The Torvak conquered them and turned them into slaves. The assembly watched and did nothing. Another image. Another dead species. Another tragedy ignored. Every young species that showed potential was either crushed or controlled, Shin said. This is not about the Outer Rim colonies. This is about what we might become. They are afraid of us, Admiral. And fear makes people do terrible things. Silence filled the room. Minho Lee spoke first. So we have two choices. We bow, or we fight. There is a third choice, Tay said quietly. We leave. Everyone looked at him. We withdraw from the assembly, he continued. We take our ships, our colonies, and our people, and we build our own future. Alone if we must. Wu shook his head. They will not let us go. They will chase us. They will try. Tay agreed. But they do not know how many ships we have. He pressed another button. The display changed to show a map of human territory, hidden beneath moons and inside asteroids, marked with red dots. Were shipyards. Hundreds of them, secret facilities that had been building warships for decades. The fleet they have seen is not our real fleet, Tay said. It is 10% of what we have. We learned from history, General. We learned from the Villani and the Morn. We prepared for this day. Yuna stared at the map. How long have you been doing this? Since the beginning. Since we joined the assembly and saw how they treated young species. We smiled and nodded and played the role of the weak newcomer. But in the shadows, we built. Just in case. Minho Lee grinned. It was the grin of a man who had just been given the best news of his life. They have no idea. No, Tay said. They do not. And that is our advantage. Wu uncrossed his arms. His scar seemed to deepen as he smiled. So we leave the assembly. They send a fleet to punish us, and we show them what humans are really capable of, only if they force our hand, Tay replied. I do not want war, but I will not let them chain us. He turned to Yuna. Ambassador, you will return to the assembly. You will listen to their vote, and when they deliver their ultimatum, you will give them our answer. What answer? Tay's eyes were cold. That humanity bows to no one. Yuna nodded. She understood now. The assembly thought they were dealing with a weak, young species. They thought humans would beg and plead and accept their chains. They were wrong. Before she left, she asked one more question. What is Protocol Exodus? Tay looked at her for a long moment. It is the signal. When I send it, every human ship, station, and colony will know that the time for hiding is over. We will stand together, or we will fall together, but we will never kneel. Yuna returned to Nexus Prime. She walked through the same corridors, past the same staring aliens, to the same small seat in the corner of the assembly hall. But something had changed. She no longer felt small. She no longer felt afraid. She looked up at High Arbiter Velos and Ambassador Krell and all the others who thought they could break humanity, and she smiled. They had no idea what was coming. In orbit above Nexus Prime, Captain Minho Lee stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge. His crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring communications, tracking alien ships, waiting for orders. A message came through on his private channel. 3 words, Protocol Exodus. Activate. Minho took a deep breath. He looked out the window at the stars and thought about everything humanity had built, everything they had sacrificed, everything they were about to risk. Then he opened a channel to his crew. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for war. The morning of the vote arrived like a storm that everyone could feel but no one could see. The corridors of Nexus Prime were busy with alien delegates moving toward the assembly hall. They talked in low voices, glancing over their shoulders, sensing that something important was about to happen. Ambassador Yuna Park walked among them. She wore her formal black uniform with the silver Earth insignia on her chest. Her face showed nothing. Her heart beat steady and calm. Behind her walked 12 other humans, diplomats, aides, and guards. They moved in perfect formation, their steps matching exactly. Every alien they passed stopped to watch. Something was different about the humans today. There was a weight to them, a presence that had not been there before. High Arbiter Velos noticed it too. From his platform in the center of the assembly hall, he watched Ambassador Park take her seat. She did not look down. She did not avoid anyone's eyes. She sat straight and still, like a statue carved from stone. She knows, Velos thought. She knows what is coming, and she is not afraid. Interesting. The session began at noon. Representatives from 200 species filled the chamber. The holographic displays showed thousands more watching from distant worlds. This was the largest audience in assembly history. Everyone wanted to see humanity brought to heel. Ambassador Krell of the Torvak Dominion stood first. His armored body gleamed under the lights, and his voice boomed across the chamber. "My fellow representatives," he said, "we are gathered here to vote on the future of the human species. They have broken our laws. They have defied our authority. They have built military forces that threaten the peace of the galaxy." He paused for effect. "I call for the vote. All those in favor of imposing sanctions on humanity, raise your voice now." One by one, the species voted. The Korath Empire voted yes. The Vrel Consortium voted yes. The Torvak Dominion voted yes. On and on it went, species after species condemning humanity. Some abstained. The Silari Collective, led by Elder Moth, refused to vote. A few smaller species, those who had felt the weight of the Assembly's power themselves, also stayed silent. But it did not matter. The votes against humanity were overwhelming. When the count was finished, Velos raised his hand. The motion passes. 212 votes in favor, 17 abstentions, 3 votes against. He turned his 3 eyes toward Unipark. "Ambassador, humanity has been found guilty of violating galactic law. You have 30 standard days to disarm your military fleet. You will abandon all Outer Rim colonies. You will submit to Assembly oversight in matters of expansion and defense. Failure to comply will result in military action against your species." The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to the human section. They waited for tears. They waited for begging. They waited for the young species to break. Unipark stood slowly. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. She stood like someone who had all the time in the universe. "High Arbiter Velos," she said. Her voice was clear and carried to every corner of the chamber. "Members of the Galactic Assembly, I have heard your vote. I have heard your demands. Now you will hear my answer." She paused. The silence was so deep that some delegates later swore they could hear their own hearts beating. 47 years ago, humanity came to the stars. We were young. We were curious. We looked up at the universe and saw wonder. We saw possibility. We saw brothers and sisters waiting to meet us. Her voice grew harder. "We were wrong." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Velos raised a hand, but Una continued. "We came to this assembly hoping for friendship. We were given mockery. We asked for land to grow. We were given nothing. We asked for respect. We were given contempt. For 47 years, we played by your rules. We smiled when you insulted us. We stayed quiet when you denied us. We believed that if we were patient, if we were good, you would accept us." She shook her head slowly. "We were fools." Ambassador Krell laughed. "Such dramatics. You are in no position to lecture us, human. You are weak. You are outnumbered. You are..." "Finished?" Una interrupted. Her eyes locked onto his. "No, Ambassador. We are just beginning." She touched a small device on her wrist. Throughout the chamber, every human delegate, aide, and guard stood up at the exact same moment. Their movements were synchronized, perfectly timed, like a single organism with many bodies. "You wanted us to know our place," Una said. "Very well. Now you will know ours." She took a deep breath. "Humanity officially withdraws from the Galactic Assembly. Effective immediately. We reject your sanctions. We reject your authority. We reject everything you stand for." Chaos erupted. Delegates shouted. Alarms began to sound. Velos slammed his hand against his podium. "You cannot do this," he roared. "You are a provisional member. You have no right to..." "Rights?" Una laughed. It was a cold sound. "You never gave us rights. You gave us chains and called them gifts. Well, we are done wearing them." She turned toward the exit. Behind her, the humans began to move. One by one, they stepped down from their seats and walked toward the doors. Their formation was perfect. Their faces showed nothing. Warlord Bren of the Korath Empire stood up. He was massive, covered in scales and scars. A creature who had conquered worlds with his bare hands. Let them go, he sneered. What can one species do against the entire galaxy? They are running away like cowards. Elder Moth watched from her seat. Her ancient eyes were wide with something that looked like fear. She remembered old stories, old warnings passed down through generations. She remembered what happened when you pushed a species too far. You fools, she whispered. You have no idea what you have done. The humans reached the doors. Una Park stopped at the threshold and turned back one final time. The entire assembly watched her. You wanted us to bow, she said. You wanted us to break. You wanted us to be like all the other young species you have crushed over the centuries. She smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had nothing left to lose. You forgot one thing. Humanity does not break. We bend. We adapt. We survive. And when you push us into a corner, she paused, letting the silence grow heavy. We push back. The doors opened behind her. Bright light flooded in from the corridor. Una turned and walked through. The other humans followed, their footsteps echoing like drums. Admiral Kang Tae waited at the end of the corridor. He stood in full military uniform, his hands clasped behind his back. Behind him stood a row of soldiers in combat armor. Una reached him and stopped. It is done, Tae nodded. Then let us go home. They walked together toward the docking bay, where human ships waited to carry them away from Nexus Prime forever. Behind them, the doors of the assembly hall sealed shut with a sound like a coffin closing. Inside, the delegates were still shouting, still arguing, still trying to understand what had just happened. But Elder Moth understood. She understood all too well. The storm is coming, she whispered, and we are not ready. The galaxy watched. On 1,000 worlds, on 1,000,000 screens, billions of beings saw what happened next. The broadcast from Nexus Prime was supposed to show humanity's humiliation. It was supposed to show a young species learning its place. Instead, it showed something that would haunt the galaxy for generations. The humans marched. Ambassador Una Park led the way. Her steps were measured, neither fast nor slow. Her head was high, her shoulders straight. Behind her came the others, diplomats in formal black, aides carrying nothing but their dignity, guards with hands empty but ready. They walked through the golden corridors of Nexus Prime in perfect formation. Their footsteps echoed against the polished floors, creating a rhythm that sounded like a heartbeat or a war drum. Aliens pressed against the walls to let them pass. Some stared with confusion. Some stared with contempt. A few stared with something else. Something that looked almost like respect. A young Korath warrior stepped into their path. He was tall and covered in battle scars. His hand rested on the weapon at his hip. Running away, humans, he sneered. I thought your kind was supposed to be brave. Una did not stop. She did not slow down. She walked straight toward him. And at the last moment, he stepped aside. He told himself he moved because he wanted to, not because something in her eyes made him move. He was lying. The humans continued walking. In the assembly hall, the delegates watched through holographic displays. Warlord Bren of the Korath laughed loudly. Look at them flee, like insects crawling back to their hole. But not everyone was laughing. Ambassador Krell of the Torvac stood very still, watching the screen with narrow eyes. Something about this felt wrong. Humans were supposed to be weak, emotional, easy to break. These humans looked like something else entirely. They are too calm, he muttered. Beside him, a Vrel diplomat nodded nervously. Why are they not running? Why are they walking so slowly? High Arbiter Velos watched from his platform. His 3 eyes followed every step, every movement. In 10,000 years, he had seen hundreds of species humbled by the assembly. They begged. They cried. They bargained. They did not walk away with their heads held high like they had already won. What are they planning? He wondered. The broadcast continued. The humans reached a large observation deck with windows overlooking space. They paused there, still in formation, and looked out at the stars. Billions of beings across the galaxy saw this moment. They saw the humans standing in silence, looking at the infinite darkness with expressions that showed no fear, only determination, only resolve. Then they continued walking. Elder Moth of the Solari Collective watched from her quarters. She was too old and too tired to go to the assembly hall. But she had screens everywhere. She had seen too much history to miss this. They are not retreating, she said to herself. They are making a statement. Her assistant, a young Solari with silver fur, looked confused. What kind of statement? Moth pointed at the screen. Look at their faces. Look at how they move. This is not the walk of a defeated species. This is the walk of a species going to war. The assistant's eyes widened. But they cannot possibly win. The coalition fleet is already assembling. They will be outnumbered 10-1. Moth shook her head slowly. Child, I have lived for 10,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species conquer the stars and fade into dust, and in all that time, I have learned one truth. She turned to look at her assistant directly. Never assume you know the full strength of your enemy, especially when that enemy is smiling. On Nexus Prime, the humans reached the docking bay. Ships waited for them there, sleek vessels painted in Earth's colors. Admiral Kang Tae stood at the entrance, watching his people approach. Captain Minho Lee was beside him. The young officer had a look of fierce pride on his face. They walked the entire way, he said. Not one of them ran. Not one of them showed weakness. Tae nodded. I expected nothing less. The humans boarded their ships in the same perfect formation. Yuna Park was the last to arrive. She stopped in front of Admiral Tae and looked back at the corridor behind her. They are watching us, she said. The whole galaxy is watching. Good, Tae replied. Let them see what humanity looks like when you try to put us in chains. He turned and walked onto the lead ship. Yuna followed. The doors sealed behind them. In orbit around Nexus Prime, the human fleet began to move. There were only a dozen ships visible, small and outnumbered compared to the alien vessels nearby. A Korath commander watched them from his warship and laughed. Is that all they have? We could destroy them in minutes. His second officer nodded eagerly. Should we pursue, Commander? The commander thought about it. His orders were to let the humans go and wait for the coalition fleet to assemble. But it would be so easy to end this now. So satisfying to crush these arrogant creatures before they could run. He opened his mouth to give the order. Then his sensors went crazy. Commander, the second officer shouted. New contacts, emerging from behind the station's shadow. Ships appeared out of nowhere. Human ships, not a dozen, not 100, thousands of them. They poured out of hiding spots throughout the system, emerging from asteroid fields, from behind moons, from places no one had thought to look. The Korath commander stared at his screen. His face went pale. That is not possible. Our intelligence said they had less than 50 warships. Commander, what do we do? He did not answer. He could not answer. Because the human fleet was not attacking. It was not fleeing. It was simply arranging itself into a perfect battle formation, surrounding Nexus Prime like a ring of steel. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Captain Minho Lee watched the alien ship scramble in confusion. Dr. Hanashin stood beside him, a small smile on her face. They are afraid, she said. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy is afraid of someone else. Minho nodded. This is only the beginning. When they realize what else we have been hiding. He left the sentence unfinished. Admiral Tae's voice came over the communication system, broadcast to every human ship. All vessels. This is Admiral Kang Tae. Today, humanity leaves the Galactic Assembly. Today, we stand alone. But we stand together. They wanted to show the galaxy that we could be broken. Instead, we will show them something else. He paused. We will show them that humanity bows to no one. The fleet began to move. Not toward battle, not toward retreat. Toward home, toward Earth. Toward a future they would build with their own hands. Behind them, the galaxy watched in silence. The broadcast had ended, but no one had stopped watching. On 1,000 worlds, billions of beings looked at empty screens and asked themselves the same question. What have we done? Elder Moth knew the answer. She sat in her quarters with tears in her ancient eyes, mourning a future that could have been so different. You pushed them, she whispered. You feared them, so you tried to destroy them. And now, she looked out her window at the stars. Now they will push back. 1 year later, the galaxy was a different place. High Arbiter Velos sat alone in his darkened office on Nexus Prime. The lights were off because he no longer wanted to see the reports on his desk. They all said the same thing. Failure. Loss. Humiliation. The coalition fleet had been destroyed. It happened 3 days after the humans left the assembly. 200 warships from 12 species gathered near Earth's solar system. They came to punish humanity, to show the young species what happened when you defied the galactic order. They never returned. The battle lasted 47 hours. Human ships came from everywhere. From hidden bases on frozen moons. From secret stations buried inside asteroids. From shipyards beneath the surface of Mars that had been building warships for 30 years. The Assembly's intelligence had said humanity had 50 combat vessels. The real number was closer to 5,000. Velos picked up a report and read it again. Complete destruction of coalition forces. No survivors. Human casualties. Minimal. He threw the report across the room. In the months that followed, humanity did not attack. They did not invade. They did not seek revenge. They simply took what they needed. Resource-rich systems in the outer rim, strategic positions near trade routes, empty worlds that the Assembly had forbidden them from touching. They built walls. Not physical walls, but walls of ships and stations and defensive platforms. Anyone could enter human space, but only with permission. And permission was rarely given. Ambassador Krell of the Torvac Dominion was dead. When news of the Coalition's defeat reached his homeworld, his own people turned on him. They blamed him for provoking the humans. They blamed him for starting a war they could not win. In the end, they executed him in the public square and broadcast it to the galaxy. It was supposed to be an apology. The humans did not respond. Warlord Bren of the Korath Empire had stopped laughing. His species was proud and warlike, but they were not stupid. They had seen what happened to the Coalition fleet. They had seen the human ships tear through armored cruisers like paper. They had no desire to be next. "We will wait," Bren announced to his generals. "We will watch. And when the humans show weakness, we will strike." His generals nodded, but none of them believed it. The humans had shown no weakness in a year. If anything, they were growing stronger. The Vrel Consortium tried to negotiate. They sent diplomats to the human border with offers of trade and alliance. The diplomats were turned away. "We do not need your trade," Admiral Kang Te told them. "We do not need your alliance. We need nothing from the galaxy that tried to enslave us." The diplomats returned home with empty hands and fearful hearts. On a quiet evening, a small ship approached the human border. It carried no weapons, no soldiers, just one passenger. Elder Moth of the Solari Collective had come to see the humans one last time. Her ship was stopped by a patrol vessel. Captain Minho Lee's voice came through the communication system. "Elder Moth, you are entering human space without permission. State your purpose." The ancient alien's voice was tired but steady. "I wish to speak with Ambassador Yuna Park. I have something to say." There was a long silence. Then Minho's voice returned. "Follow us." They led her to a station orbiting Mars. It was a massive structure, bristling with weapons and sensors. Built for war but filled with life. Through the windows, Moth could see humans moving through corridors, working at screens, living their lives. Ambassador Yuna Park met her in a small garden inside the station. Real plants grew there, green and alive, nourished by artificial sunlight. It was beautiful. "You wanted to see me," Yuna said. She looked older than she had a year ago, harder, but her eyes were still kind. Moth nodded slowly. "I wanted to ask you a question, one that has haunted me since the day you walked out of the assembly." "Ask. Will you take revenge?" Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She looked at the plants around them, at the small garden humanity had built in the cold darkness of space. "No," she said finally. "We are not like you." Moth blinked. "What do you mean?" "The Korath destroyed the Villani because they feared them. The Torvac enslaved the Morn because they could. Every powerful species in the galaxy has used its strength to crush others." Yuna shook her head. "We will not do that. We do not need to dominate others to feel powerful." Moth felt something loosen in her chest. Relief, hope. Yuna smiled. It was a sad smile, but it was real. "We want to be left alone. We want to build our own future, in our own way, without the galaxy telling us what we can and cannot do. That is all we ever wanted. But you will never forget what we did." "No." Yuna agreed. We will never forget. And we will never trust the assembly again. You had a chance to welcome us as equals. You chose fear instead. That choice has consequences. Moth nodded. She understood. She had understood from the beginning. There is one more thing I must tell you, the old alien said. Something I have never told anyone. Yuna waited. 10,000 years ago, when I was young, the Solari were like you. We were new to the stars. We had dreams and ambitions and hope. The assembly saw us as a threat and tried to destroy us. She paused, her ancient eyes distant with memory. We survived because we surrendered. We gave up our ships, our independence, our pride. We became what they wanted us to be. And in doing so, we lost everything that made us special. Moth looked at Yuna with something like admiration. You did not surrender. You faced the entire galaxy and refused to bow. I am glad, Ambassador. I am glad that one species finally had the courage to stand. Yuna reached out and took the old alien's hand. It was thin and fragile, covered in silver fur. Thank you, Elder Moth, for warning me that day, for voting against the sanctions. You did not have to do that. I had to, Moth replied. Someone had to remember what it meant to be brave. She left the station an hour later. As her ship crossed back into assembly space, she looked through the window at the human border. Thousands of lights gleamed in the darkness. Ships, stations, weapons platforms. A wall of steel protecting a species that refused to be broken. They will change everything, Moth whispered. For better or worse, the galaxy will never be the same. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Captain Minho Lee stood at the window. Dr. Hana Shin joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to him. Elder Moth's ship has left our space, she reported. She is returning to the assembly. Minho nodded. Do you think the others will ever accept us? Hana thought about it. Probably not. We scared them too badly. They will hate us and fear us for generations. Then what was the point? We won. But we are alone. Hana smiled. Being alone is not always bad. We have each other. We have our worlds, our people, our future. The assembly wanted to take all of that away. Now they cannot touch us. Minho took a sip of his coffee. She was right. They had lost the galaxy, but they had saved themselves. Maybe that was enough. In his office on the orbital station above Earth, Admiral Kang Tae stood before a holographic map. Human territory glowed blue against the darkness of space. It had tripled in size over the past year. General Sok Woo stood beside him. Military readiness is at 100%. Admiral, all border defenses are active. The fleet is ready for any threat. Tae nodded slowly. Good. He looked at the map for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but certain. The galaxy wanted humanity to know its place. Now they know ours. We did not ask for this war. We did not want to stand alone. But when they gave us no choice, we stood. He turned to face Wu directly. We stand alone, we stand together, and we stand forever. Wu saluted. Yes, Admiral. Outside the window, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. 8 billion humans lived there, going about their lives, raising their children, dreaming of tomorrow. They had faced the entire galaxy and refused to break. And somewhere in the stars, the galaxy was finally beginning to understand. Humanity was not a young species anymore. Humanity was something new, something that had never existed before, something that could not be controlled, could not be conquered, could not be destroyed. Humanity was free, and they would never bow again.